Anyways, what's up, y'all? It's your host, Most Does Most, Christian. Back in the video. We got the boy Macklin, back in Flick, why Miles morale works and everyone else fails. Let's see what's going on with this. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We is on the road to that 700. Yeah. Today what? Wednesday? Thursday? Oh, Wednesday. Today is Wednesday.
You can almost set your watch to it. Jane Foster picks up the hammer and audiences turn on her.
Yeah, I hope y'all having a nice, wonderful day, like always. Let's get on to this video.
Legacy characters almost always fail. The pattern is consistent enough that you can almost set your watch to it. Jane Foster picks up the hammer and audiences turn on her. Riri Williams inherits Tony Stark's suit and nobody buys it. Rey wins every fight she's in, and somehow, the more she wins, the less people care. The discourse around each of these failures gets loud and messy and usually ends up arguing about the wrong things. But underneath all of it, the same problem keeps showing up. I'm Mac, welcome to Mac and Flicks. So when Miles Morales worked, when a 16-year-old kid from Brooklyn wearing a spray-painted Spider-Man suit got one of the most unanimously loved character introductions in recent superhero history, I wanted to understand what they got right. All of it, down to the level where the decisions actually get made. I made a video about Spider-Verse a while back, went deep into the animation, the frame rates, what the film did to the whole medium. And while I was making it, I kept brushing past a different question.
Hold on, look, go back. I just saw a movie that I liked it. Hold on.
Frame rates, what the film did to the...
Yeah. Oh. It's a good movie right here. Low-key, all of these, because I watch all of these movies. But I like this one and Puss in Boots, especially. I like these two. These two is actually a good movie to sit back and watch, bro. I'm not gonna hold you.
The whole medium. And while I was making it, I kept brushing past a different question. Every time I tried to explain why Spider-Verse worked, I'd end up talking about Miles. The smile I had watching him take his leap was so big, and it came from a real place. The feeling that this character had genuinely earned that moment in a way I'd watched so many others skip past. But I couldn't fully explain the mechanism. Why him? Why did the same audience that rejected Jane Foster and Rey embrace Miles without hesitation? So I went back.
Playing on iPhone? Now you can play Unlocked on PC with Google Play Games.
Watched a lot of films I didn't particularly want to rewatch, took notes on what each of the failed handovers had in common, and what I found wasn't what I expected. I expected to find a story...
I'm not gonna hold you. I'm gonna just keep it real. I feel like how every time Marvel or DC was trying to pull out a movie for a female, I feel like it would flop all the time. And I'm not trying to be that type of guy, but let's just state the obvious. The people do not want no female superhero. They into guy superheroes. When you see Spider-Man coming out of nowhere, webbing up people, fighting people, people is turned to see that. If you make like that Thunder shit that he just showed, bro, ain't nobody about to look at that. At best they about to have at least 10 people because they girl want to know who this is because it's a female. Like, it's two different things. Like, that's like saying if Bad Girl had her own movie. I don't think a lot of people will sit there and watch a Bad Girl movie. Unless Batman in it. Now, if Batman in it, and he doing a lot of things with Batgirl, then that movie might actually do good. But if it's just a movie by itself, this can't be this good.
About good writing versus bad writing. What I found was something more interesting. The deeper I looked, the less this felt like a writing success alone. The screenplay was helping Miles. The animation was helping Miles. Even the soundtrack was helping Miles. Every part of that production seemed to be pulling in the same direction, and I couldn't find a single other legacy character story where that was true. Most of the failures I looked at felt isolated. One part of the movie understood what Miles needed, the rest didn't get the memo. Spider-Verse was different, and by the time you got to Miles taking his leap, you'd already been given the answer 6 different ways, without realizing it was a question. That's what this video is about. Why Miles Works isn't the story of one good decision. It's the story of 30 good decisions made in 30 different rooms, all facing the same direction. The other films asked audiences to accept a new Spider-Man. Spider-Verse made acceptance feel inevitable. I want to talk about legacy characters for a second, because I think the conversation around...
Listen, would you rather have a brand new Spider-Man that's different from the rest of the three? Or would you rather have the same Spider-Man, but in a different form, but a different name? Toby, Andrew, and what's it called? Tom Holland? That should be it. We should not have another Spider-Man. They should have been put Miles out there in there. They waited too late. They waited too late to put that boy Miles out. Miles should have been on his 4th movie right now as we speak.
Is usually happening at the wrong level. When a legacy character fails, the discourse goes in two directions. One side says the character was pushed for the wrong reasons: diversity quota, corporate mandate, forced representation. The other side says the audience is just resistant to change, that the backlash is prejudice wearing the costume of criticism. And both of those conversations are happening, always, loudly. But underneath both of them, there's a quieter problem that nobody's really addressing. Most legacy characters fail because of decisions made in the writing room before a single frame was shot. I kept watching film after film and finding the same 3 patterns. Different movies, different characters, different franchises, same blueprint for failure. The first one: tear down the original hero to make room. Thor: Love and Thunder is the clearest example I found. Thor, the guy who lifted a hammer from a crater in New Mexico, who fought the Hulk to a draw, who sacrificed himself twice for people he barely knew, spends most of that film as a comedic bumbler. He flexes too much, he cries over a goat. The reason the film does this is pretty transparent. If Thor is still operating at full capacity, Jane Foster has less room to look impressive, so the screenplay makes him smaller. On the page, before filming started. The thing audiences feel even when they can't quite articulate it. The resentment doesn't stay with Thor. It travels. When someone you've cared about for a decade gets quietly humiliated to make room for someone new, you don't blame the person you cared about. You blame the arrival. Jane Foster ends up carrying resentment that the screenplay created, and that follows her character for the rest of her MCU existence. What makes this pattern so damaging is how invisible it is from inside the writing room. The math feels logical. The new character needs to be impressive, the original character can't look more impressive, so make the original look worse.
So basically, just to sum that up for the people who not understanding, basically put the main character that is his thing, lowering him down so he don't have that much cutscenes and stuff like that. Now put the sidekick that knows she not supposed to get that much screen time, then there and there, and make her the main character. Put the main character as the sidekick and put the sidekick as the main character. Even though 9 out of 10 that stuff really don't be working half of the time. Only a few movies that I can see that's working. But till then, nah.
What that misses is that the audience's love for the original is the exact thing you need on your side when you introduce someone new. That love is an asset. Diminishing Thor doesn't redirect it toward Jane, it just burns it. The title without earning it. Riri Williams, Ironheart, is a genuinely interesting character in the right hands. 15-year-old prodigy from Chicago who engineers her own suit of armor in her dorm room. That's a solid foundation. In the comics, the problem was structural. Her first...
When this movie came out? I don't know. I just want to know when this movie came out.
Appearance handed her Tony Stark's flagship series immediately after Civil War II, with virtually no build-up. The MCU version had the same issue in a different format. She debuted in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and audiences had maybe 20 minutes with her before the franchise was treating her like an established presence. When her own Disney Plus series came out, people didn't feel connected to her yet. She hadn't been through anything hard enough on screen for the audience to feel invested in whether she succeeded. The character took the blame for a structural failure. The rejection she got was real, but the structural gap that caused it was built before she appeared. The third pattern is the one that bothers me most, because it's the most invisible. Skip the struggle entirely. The reason it bothers me most is that it's the pattern that looks like it should work. Tear down the original, hand the title without earning it. You can see where those go wrong from the outside. This one looks fine on paper. The character is capable, the character wins.
Like, stuff like that, and whoever be thinking that's right and thinking that's gonna be cool, bro. Like, make it seem like the second character is like he could branch off and have his own movie to itself. Like, like I say like low key, Robin could have his own movie. Robin could low key have his own movie. And no, I'm not talking about no T Titan Gold movie. I'm talking about if Batman, like low key, Robin can have his own movie. Like sidekicks that low key can have their own movies. There's a lot. There's so many people that could really have their side movie and like never flop that stuff. Like, bro, it just like you gotta let people earn it. It's like building up character, bro. If you don't build no character to these people, bro, ain't nobody gonna sit here and buy a $15 ticket. Go get the popcorn. It's probably was $11, medium, butter. The drink was probably about $5. Combine that all together and stuff like that. Ain't nobody about to go see no side character that have no character built up or no heart to heart feeling moment for you to feel bad for them or nothing like that. Man, ain't nobody about to do that.
That sounds like heroism. What's missing is so quiet you almost don't notice it until you realize you don't care. Rey is the new lead of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, Disney's attempt to pass the torch from Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Leia to a new generation of characters. She's introduced in The Force Awakens as a scavenger on a desert planet. And within that same film, she's flying the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo, holding her own against a trained Force user in a lightsaber fight, and using Force abilities she's never been shown to have. The films want you to feel her triumph. The problem is, the audience hadn't watched her.
Listen. If Disney was not really, you know what I'm saying, that like them type of people, bro. You know who really would have been having to pass the torch besides her? Because she should have been a side character at its finest. Watch this. I'll show y'all.
Her own against a trained Force user in a lightsaber fight, and using Force abilities she's never been shown to have. The films want...
Dude right here. I promise you, if dude right here had his own movie, I promise you, it would freaking succeed. How much you want to bet? If Luke Skywalker pass his torch to this dude right here, it's over with. It is over with. I'll go watch it myself. I'm not even a big Star Wars fan. Real talk. Cause let's keep it a buck, bro. They like, and I saw little things then and there, and like I watched somebody explain it off cameras about this. Low key, I could see dude be the perfect fit for this. I know I'm not the only person in this world to think about that. I think dude low key could have been like a perfect fit, the next Luke Skywalker, but suffered his own type of pains and glory and fighting and who knows, man. Whatever they come up with these scripts.
You to feel
it's like Avatar for all Sunday. Like Avatar. Somehow, some way they always got another script. How do you get a script for 2031? Like, golly. I don't even
her
know.
triumph. The problem is, the audience hadn't watched her fail badly enough to bond with her failure, which means they hadn't really bonded with her at all by the time those victories arrived. Competence that shows up before the struggle reads as a gift rather than something earned. All three of these patterns have something...
Yeah, because the downside, I say, with people with that, bro, they need to let... And I understand why some studios or people who write shows or do movies, they let the main character, seem weak. Because if the character was so good at what they doing, and they undefeated in every fight they doing, nobody's not going to actually sit there and watch that, bro. They need the character to lose, come back out of nowhere in the cut. And I know this is off topic, like Rocky, bro. I watched the Rocky movie, right? I had watched 1, 2, and 3. I gotta finish up. There's like 3 more of them. Rocky, he lost in third movie. He lost the third movie to some I forgot what dude it is. He had a mohawk and all that. Had a weird cut. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't recommend nobody get that cut if you know what I'm talking about. Rocky lost. And like, it built up a relationship with him and his wife. And like Rocky was like, was training with Apollo Creed and stuff like that. And then he had to build a confidence when him and his wife was talking to him in the ocean, and he was talking about, I'm afraid and stuff like that. And she talked about, I'm afraid too, but that don't mean nothing. And like, oh my gosh, that's a ride or die. That's like the you need to do. Like, build some emotion. Like, make a character lose. Like, if you don't make a character like lose a match, bro, it just nobody gonna sit there and watch it.
In common. They're decisions made on the page, before cameras roll, before casting is announced, before the marketing campaign begins. The film starts shooting, and the damage is already done. No amount of performance or visual effects can fix a legacy character whose foundation was built wrong before anyone said action. The ideas themselves were fine, by the way. Jane Foster as Thor is a genuinely moving concept. A dying woman who becomes worthy of something she can barely lift. Riri Williams engineering a suit in her dorm room is exactly the kind of origin story the genre needed. Rey carrying the future of Star Wars, there's a version of that story that works. What broke each of them was how they were introduced, how they were earned, how the films handled the moment of arrival. That's a craft problem. And craft problems have craft solutions. You can't solve in production what you broke in the writing room. Spider-Verse solved it in the writing room, and the proof of that is sitting in the screenplay document itself. Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman didn't write a standard film script and then hand it to an animation team to figure out. The screenplay opens with the instruction, "We begin on a comic." Throughout the document, they write a 3-panel split screen. They write jump cut that appears on screen in the finished film. Bam, thwip, whoop whoop, was capitalized directly.
Look, listen, the reason why Spider-Man is so successful, and I'm gonna say a little bit more throughout this video, is because when you number one, every Spider-Man is always a canon event that every Spider-Man goes through a spider bite. Don't know what way and what how. I just know when it was Andrew got bitten, and he was in the I think him and his class was taking a field trip or something, like to the science museum, and a spider landed on him and bit him and stuff like that, and he started like hanging on the walls and stuff like that. For Miles, he was hanging with his uncle. He was going to his uncle's spot that like him and his brother used to spray paint stuff, and he was spray painting something and a spider bit him.
In the action lines of the script. The visual language wasn't something the animation department invented, it was written into the first draft. Every animator, every compositor, every color artist was working from a document that already thought in panels. That matters because it means the identity of the film was a writing decision before it was anything else. The form was the screenplay. The comic book visual grammar, the panel splits, the onomatopoeia living in the world geometry, all of it decided in the writing room before anyone picked up a camera. Which is exactly...
That's a real question. Why did Miles didn't have an auntie? Like in a movie or in the game? Like I think Miles in the game, he only had a dad and a mom. He even had an uncle. He even had no type of uncle or nothing like that. I don't know, son. They must didn't follow script with that one. I don't know, son.
Exactly how they handled Peter Parker. The 1610 Peter Parker dies in the first act, heroically. Physically at his peak, tactically brilliant, morally unblemished, he spends his final scene trying to save the city and protect a terrified, paralyzed Miles. He dies the way you'd want your favorite hero to die, if they had to die. Doing the thing that made you love them at full capacity without compromise. That's a screenplay decision. Lord and Rothman made it on the page before anyone was cast, before a single frame was rendered. When Peter dies that way, the audience grieves him. They're heartbroken. And that grief is the most valuable thing the film could have given Miles, because grief pointed at a legacy is just love with nowhere to go. The audience who loved Peter Parker wants someone worthy to carry.
And then when he came to find out, like, his uncle was that dude with the purple dude the whole time, saying, the Kingpin dude, low-key slimed that man out and shot him. Nah, that was low-key kind of crazy, saying.
What he left behind. They're already rooting for Miles before he's done anything. The screenplay created that opening by treating Peter with enough care that losing him actually hurt. I think this is the thing most failed legacy stories completely miss. The instinct when you're introducing a new character is to make the audience transfer their affection, to somehow shift what they feel for the original over to the replacement. Spider-Verse doesn't try to do that. It does the opposite. It makes you love Peter more, makes his death hurt more, makes the vacancy he leaves feel more real. And then it puts Miles in front of that vacancy and trusts the audience to do the rest. The grief becomes the bridge. You don't need them to stop caring about Peter. You need them to care so much they want someone worthy to pick up what he dropped. Compare that to Love and Thunder. Thor walks into that film already diminished, already the butt of a joke the screenplay is telling at his expense. The audience arrives defensive, protecting someone they feel is being taken from them. The grief that Spider-Verse creates never gets a chance to form. Peter B. Parker is the second half of the same screenplay decision. He's broken emotionally.
That's another thing, too. Man, it just came up in my mind. Why wasn't Thor in the Civil War? I feel like whoever wrote that part and said, hey, we don't need Thor to be in Civil War. Because he don't know what side he would have picked. He would try to be the calm, easy, collect guy. Just trying to ease the situation out and stuff like that.
Divorced, depressed, mid-30s, eating pizza in the shower. But the film draws a very deliberate line around...
And the Hawk, hold on, the Hawk was him in there too. Yeah, the Hawk was him in there too. That's like low-key kind of crazy. Cause Hawk wanted to pick Iron Man, and Thor wanted to pick Captain America. They could have been boxing the whole time.
What it'll break and what it won't. In every fight sequence, Peter B. is still lethal, still tactically brilliant, still the person who's been doing this for 15 years. The sadness is personal. The capability is still there. Lord and Rothman drew that line on the page. Love and Thunder made Thor incompetent and sad at once, and audiences felt the damage immediately, even the ones who couldn't explain why. There's also something the screenplay does with Peter B. that I think is under-discussed. By making the mentor broken emotionally, the film prevents Miles from having a safety net. If Peter B. were a perfect mentor, wise, patient, fully capable, Miles would become a student, and students wait to be taught. The story would become about the teacher. Because Peter B. is a mess in particular and deliberate ways, the relationship has to work in both directions. Miles learns the mechanics of being Spider-Man from Peter. Peter learns what he forgot about hope from Miles. The brokenness is the mechanism that keeps Miles at the center rather than pushing him to the edges. The screenplay decided what Miles deserved before the audience knew they were being asked a question. One of those decisions was about who Miles actually is underneath the mask. Focus on whether the new character respects the original. Spider-Verse builds Miles from a completely different emotional foundation, so that the two characters are never really competing for the same space. Peter Parker's wound is guilt. Clean, sourceable, precise. He had the chance to stop a mugger and chose not to, and that mugger killed his Uncle Ben. Named cause, named lesson, named response. With great power comes great responsibility. Peter fights because of what he failed to do. That formula has worked for 60 years because guilt is a clean, dramatic engine. But it also means every Peter Parker story is about a man trying to outrun a failure. His heroism comes from a place of debt. He did something wrong once, and the rest of his life is organized around paying for it. Miles' wound is different in kind. Before the bite, before any of the superhero machinery activates, Miles doesn't know who he is. His father represents one version of his future, his uncle represents another, and Miles can't fully inhabit either. He deliberately fails his entrance exam, trying to force a transfer back home. He sits with a blank page on a Dickens essay and can't write a word. He paints no expectations on a subway wall because expectation, anyone's expectations, feels like a weight he can't carry yet. That's an open wound. No named cause, no clean lesson at the end of it. Just a question. Who am I supposed to be? When the spider bites him, the powers amplify everything already wrong. His body becomes as unreadable as his identity. The venom strike fires when he panics, and won't fire when he aims. The camouflage turns him invisible in social situations. His hands stick to things he doesn't mean to touch. The origin event gives Miles a crisis with superpowers, and the crisis was already there before the spider arrived. Peter's question, can I live up to the responsibility?
God damn. But, damn. Sneeze so bad the headphones start falling off my face. Anyway. Yeah, I lucky agree with that. It's way different from all the original Spider-Mans and stuff like that. Like, Miles was going to college. He didn't know what like school college he was gonna go to next. And he was struggling to write something and then all that other stuff. And then when he got bit by the spider, he was trying to get used to, being the Spider-Man. And when he found dude who was his teacher, he was like confused how to like the web and the stuff and all that
ability
stuff.
I carry has a known shape. Miles's question, who am I, stays open through most of the film. Miles is struggling with selfhood, and the film knows it. A responsibility speech closes the wrong loop. Jefferson's speech through the door is about identity. He tells Miles he sees a spark in him, that whatever Miles does with it, he'll be great. You exist and you're worth something. That's the answer Miles's question needed, and it's the answer Peter never got, because Peter's question was never about worth. Peter already knew his worth. He just couldn't forgive himself for the moment he forgot it. The two answers aren't interchangeable. You can't give Miles the responsibility speech and have it land, because Miles doesn't need to be told about responsibility. He needs to be told he's allowed to exist as himself. The film understood that the words Jefferson says through that door have to be completely different from anything Aunt May or Uncle Ben ever said to Peter.
Right.
And they are. Every word of that conversation is calibrated to the question Miles actually needs answered, not the question Spider-Man Origins traditionally answer. The film never sets Miles and Peter up as alternatives. They're two people with completely different wounds who happen to wear versions of the same mask. The audience doesn't have to choose between them. It asks them to love Peter so much they want someone worthy of what he left behind. And then it spends 90 minutes building someone worthy. Two different wounds, two different questions, one mask that fits them both. And here's the part that genuinely got me when I went back through this. The screenplay was arguing for Miles in plot and dialogue, but the animation department was making the same case, just in a language most people walk straight past. Miles is animated on 2s throughout most of the film, 12 frames per second, rather than the standard 24. Choppy, stuttery. Wrong in a way you feel before you can name it. Peter B. Parker is on 1s, fluid, effortless, the way someone moves when they've been doing this for 15 years. Put them in the same shot, and you don't need a word of dialogue. One of them belongs here. One of them is still figuring out how to exist in this world. What makes it a character decision rather than a style decision? The wrongness tracks Miles' internal state, not just his skill level. His powers misfire when he's anxious. His camouflage activates when he wants to disappear. His hands stick to things he doesn't mean to touch. The animation rate and the power malfunctions are pointing at the same thing. His body hasn't caught up to who he's supposed to be yet. And what took me an embarrassing number of rewatches to fully clock is what the animation department was doing with color, because that's where their argument gets really interesting. When Miles' spider sense first activates, it comes in purple and green. Hold that for a second. Purple and green are the Prowler's colors, Aaron's colors. The color department embedded Aaron's shadow directly into Miles' biology before the audience even knows Aaron is the Prowler. You're watching Miles develop his powers for the first time, and the film is already telling you about the choice he's going to have to make, in color, before any dialogue, before any scene where a character explains what's at stake. Think about what that requires as a creative decision. The color team had to look at a scene that, on the surface, is just Miles getting his spider sense for the first time, and decide to load that moment with information the audience can't consciously decode yet. The purple and green don't mean anything to a first-time viewer. They register as cool looking, as Miles' colors, as something unique to him. It's only on rewatch, or when the Prowler reveal lands and you go back to that early scene in your memory, that the color choice becomes an argument. The film planted a clue in a language it hadn't taught you yet, and it trusted that the argument would land even if you never consciously registered what it was saying. The weird thing is that the color choices end up telling the same story as the screenplay. Nobody ever says it out loud, but they're both pushing Miles toward the same conclusion. After Aaron dies, after Miles commits to what he's going to be, the spider sense shifts to red and blue.
I ain't lying to you. So, it was very different how they did everything though. And the thing I like about Spider-Man, it was different from all the rest of the other three Spider-Mans. That how the way they wrote this was way different than they was doing. Like he was explaining, when he get nervous or don't want to be there, he disappear. Or if he things that he don't grab, it stick on to him and stuff like that. I like how in number 2, the Spider-Man into the multiverse, that it was another, like at the ending when we all saw at the ending that it was Miles with braided up hair with braids in his head, bro, in another universe that his dad died. Yeah, it was great. That's how like you write a different Spider-Man than exactly the same Spider-Man. But Andrew Spider-Man did have the black Spider-Man though, so that's really kind of different to Spider-Man mixed with Venom. So yeah.
The color department marked the exact moment his identity changed, and they did it without dialogue, without a speech, without any of the usual signaling. If you were watching carefully, the color told you everything before the plot did. Then the subway painting, which connects all of this back to the character in a way that took me a few rewatches to fully see. Early in the film, Miles and Aaron go into an abandoned tunnel, and Miles paints a blank figure of himself on the wall. No face, no details, just a silhouette of a body surrounded by color. Vivid, expressive Brooklyn color, everywhere except where Miles himself is supposed to be. He paints exactly what he feels. A kid surrounded by a world with shape and color, while he's still just an outline. At the end of the film, Miles takes a purchased Spider-Man suit and spray paints it, black and red, using the exact graffiti technique Aaron taught him in that tunnel. The blank figure gets filled in. Same hand, same can, different answer. The artistic language of Miles and Aaron's relationship gets transferred directly onto the Spider-Man suit itself. Miles doesn't inherit the mask clean. He marks it as his before he puts it on, and the color team was there for both moments, making sure the language of that transformation was embedded in every frame. The color choices are doing what the screenplay is doing. One of them uses words, the other uses purple and green. But before any of that could work, the film had to answer a more fundamental question, one that nobody was asking out loud, but that every skeptical viewer was carrying into the cinema. Does the mask even fit someone like Miles? So, if you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button, and leave a like if this was worth your time. Lord and Roth.
Facts, cause if you want more videos like this, man, let me know, man. Just hit that sub button, bro. You know?
And use the multiverse to solve a problem that has nothing to do with the plot mechanics of dimensional collapse. The real problem, how do you make an audience accept a new Spider-Man without asking them to? Asking creates resistance. The moment you're asked to accept something, part of your brain starts looking for reasons not to. The ask itself generates the pushback. So the film doesn't ask. It builds a visual case across 90 minutes and lets the audience do the math. 6 Spider people. Each one a different answer to the same question. What does Spider-Man look like? Gwen Stacy matters most to Miles' arc directly. She's fully capable, completely confident, and she treats him as a peer from the moment they meet. She just assumes he's capable of figuring it out, the way she figured it out. Her confidence arrives before he's demonstrated anything worth being confident about. And that's the first time in the film that someone in the Spider People world looks at Miles without an asterisk. Spider-Man Noir exists in actual black and white, moving through a color film as a grayscale character, the color department building detailed shading for someone the audience can only ever see in monochrome. Spider-Ham operates on Looney Tunes physics, producing mallets from nowhere because that's the logic of his world. Both of them make the same argument from different directions. The concept of Spider-Man is larger than any one version of it, and the film treats their realities with the same seriousness it treats everyone else's. Pinty Parker moves in manga animation grammar, a completely different visual system from everyone else on screen. Her sequences run at a different pace and in a different register. She doesn't try to match the aesthetic around her. The argument she makes is that her version is complete on its own terms. Each of them is a different proof. The mask doesn't have a required biology or background. It has a required quality, the willingness to pick it up and do the right thing with it. This goes back further than the film.
I wonder if they ever had a bad Spider-Man before, like a bad Spider-Man that didn't care about the city but destroyed the city. Y'all think y'all low-key they'll make a movie about that? Or like a show about that? Or somebody like a fan page would make something like that? If a Spider-Man was like actually a bad person? I mean, who knows?
Stan Lee said something about this near the end of his life that I've thought about a lot since I first read it. He noticed that readers from all kinds of backgrounds identified with Spider-Man more than almost any other superhero, and his theory was simple. The costume covers the body completely. You can't see his race, his age, his face. Anyone watching could imagine themselves inside the suit. The mask was designed, almost accidentally, to belong to everyone. It took 60 years and one Sony animated film to make that explicit. The funeral sequence does this for thousands of people at once, every citizen in the street wearing a cheap Spider-Man mask. Mary Jane says Peter believed anyone could be a hero. The camera pulls back and the crowd goes all the way to the edge of the frame. One image, no dialogue, no character explaining what you're supposed to feel. Just thousands of people who've already decided the mask belongs to whoever earns it. The film builds its case 6 times across 90 minutes, so that by the time Miles takes his leap, the audience has already been given the answer more times than they can consciously count. His claiming the mask doesn't feel like a question being answered. It feels like an obvious conclusion being confirmed. The mask was...
I'm sorry to say this, but hey, to this day, son, if y'all played the Spider-Man game, now why Venom Mary Jane had to do that to Spider-Man, throw that man on the brick, saying, I'm sorry, so that's still like it's still messed up to this day. And how the way I just saw this Spider-Man just plopped on the ground like that, saying, oh my god.
Feel like a question being answered. It feels like an obvious conclusion being confirmed. The mask was never Peter Parker's to own. The film obviously consciously count.
Yeah, what are you saying? Hold on, bro.
Miles takes his leap. The audience has already been given the answer more times than they can consciously count.
I couldn't send. I would have been in there for at least about 30 minutes, bro. You telling me you shaking back from that? Heck nah. And what
His
universe?
claiming the mask doesn't feel like a question being answered. It feels like an obvious conclusion being confirmed. The mask was never Peter Parker's to own. The film proved that before Miles ever put it on. But knowing the mask fits anyone is only half the answer. The other half is what Miles personally carries that makes him worth watching earn it. Powers arrive, the death that creates the lesson, responsibility speech, hero emerges. Peter Parker is the template. The wound comes from the origin event. Miles breaks this entirely. Before the bite, he's already in pieces. He's been pulled out of his neighborhood, his actual home, the one he knows, the one where he belongs, and dropped into an elite prep school called Brooklyn Visions Academy, where he doesn't fit and he knows it. His father, Jefferson, is a police officer, strict and loving in equal measure, a man who believes in order and has crushing expectations for his son. His uncle Aaron is the other side of that, relaxed, warm, encouraging Miles's artistic rebellion, taking him underground to paint graffiti on walls where nobody's supposed to be. Miles doesn't fit either of them completely. He loves his father, but doesn't feel safe enough to be vulnerable with him. He loves Aaron, but senses something he can't name under the surface of their closeness. He's assigned a paper called Great Expectations, Dickens, the irony is not subtle, and can't write a single word of it. He sits with the blank page and goes underground instead, paints...
Hey, let's keep it a buck. We all was there when we was in high school, bro. Try to write something down in a page that they had us working, or English and history, and then your friend talk about, hop on a game. You're like, one game won't hurt. Soon as it turned to one game, it turned to plenty more games. Cause like I don't know, son. Back then I hated writing pieces of paper, 5 pieces of paper about a book or something, bro. I used to blow my stuff, bro.
No expectations on a subway wall, and for a moment, he can breathe. He deliberately tanks a test at Visions, trying to get himself transferred back home. Gets questions wrong on purpose, because the version of his future that school represents doesn't fit yet, and he'd rather fail than pretend otherwise. The bite doesn't give him direction, it amplifies everything already wrong. His powers become a physical extension of his internal crisis. He can't control them, can't predict them. He sticks to things he doesn't mean to touch. He turns invisible when he's anxious. His body becomes as unreadable to him as his own identity. And then the film does something every other Spider-Man origin skips entirely.
Right.
It gives Miles a tragedy that changes his motivation at the source. Halfway through the film, Aaron corners Miles on a rooftop. The Prowler has been hunting the new Spider-Man on Kingpin's orders, and we've watched Aaron do it, watched the chase, felt the wrongness of a man hunting a boy we know he loves. When Miles unmasks and Aaron sees his nephew's face, the whole film holds its breath. Aaron has spent years doing what Kingpin asks. He's built his life around it. He's very good at it. And now Kingpin is asking him to kill his own nephew, and the two halves of who Aaron is have run out of room to coexist. He refuses. Kingpin shoots him. Aaron dies, having made, possibly for the first time, the right choice. He chose Miles over everything else, over his livelihood, over his loyalty, over his own safety. He looked at the boy and chose him. And the thing about that choice is that it costs Aaron everything and gives Miles a motivation Uncle Ben's death never gave Peter. Peter carries guilt for what he failed to do. Miles carries grief for what Aaron chose to do. The two feelings point in completely different directions.
Right.
Peter Parker fights because of guilt for what he caused, a failure he can never undo, a debt organized around the rest of his life. Miles fights to honor a choice Aaron made. The motivation is redemptive. He's trying to be worth what Aaron paid. The Kingpin mirror sits right next to this, and it's worth looking at. Wilson Fisk built a machine.
Golly, bro. It like, oh.
The Kingpin mirror sits.
God. Just. Golly, bro. This dude built like a chicken pie.
It's right next to this, and it's worth looking at. Wilson Fisk built a machine to tear a hole in the multiverse because he cannot accept that his wife and son are gone. His grief became an obsession, became a plan to break the fabric of reality rather than move forward. In the climax, alternate versions of his wife and son materialize in front of him. They see what he's doing. They run. He loses them again, in the same way, because of the same flaw, with no one else to blame. Fisk couldn't let go. Aaron, at the very end, chose to. Peter Parker fights because he didn't act. Miles Morales fights because someone else did. That motivation is real, it's earned. But a motivation, however good, means nothing if the character hasn't been put through enough that you believe they're capable of acting on it. And Spider-Verse was very deliberate about how hard it made Miles work before letting him be Spider-Man. You bond with a character through watching them fail. That's where empathy lives, in the gap between what someone's trying to do and what they can actually manage. Rey beats a trained Force user in lightsaber combat without training. The film wants you to feel the triumph of that moment, but you can only feel a triumph that was preceded by struggle. Skip the struggle, and you haven't earned the triumph.
Right, everybody gotta go through a struggle before you go to the main course. Remember that. Everybody gotta struggle before they go to the main course.
Announced it. Miles is genuinely bad at this for most of the film. His first attempted heroic leap ends with him lying on the street. The Alchemax heist is a disaster. His Venom strike misfires constantly, only works under panic, and his camouflage turns him invisible at the worst possible moments. His own team webs him to a chair and says out loud what the situation is. He's not ready, he's a liability, the mission is too important to risk on someone who hasn't proven himself. They're right. And the audience knows it, because they've been through every stumble alongside him. Then Jefferson talks through the door. He's standing outside Miles' dorm room, not knowing his son is on the other side.
Boy, that Chance the Rapper? Man, hold on. That boy Chance the Rapper got him in the Spider-Man? I'm probably covering up, but if you go right here in this scene right here, that boy Chance the Rapper right here. I didn't even know that.
Webbed to a wall, having just watched his uncle die. He doesn't know any of it. He came because he wanted to say something before it was too late. The way parents sometimes arrive at exactly the right moment without knowing why. He says he can see a spark in Miles. That whatever Miles does with his life, Whatever shape it takes, he'll be great. He says it to a closed door. His son hears every word through the wood. This is the scene the film was building toward from the beginning. Jefferson has spent the whole film being the authority figure Miles couldn't reach. The man who represents expectation and order and a version of the future that doesn't fit. And here, through a door, not knowing who he's really talking to, he says the one thing that could unlock his son. He gives Miles an identity. That's the answer to a completely different question than Peter Parker ever had to ask. Miles breaks the webbing with a Venom Strike, the power that's misfired every time he needed it, finally aimed deliberately at something. He goes to Peter Parker's workshop, takes a spare suit, and paints it, black and red, using the graffiti technique Aaron taught him in the tunnel. Aaron's artistic rebellion becomes part of the suit itself. Miles marks the mask as his before he puts it on, and the marking is done in Aaron's language. The suit gets claimed, not passed down. At the top of the skyscraper, the camera inverts. The shot frames him as launching upward rather than falling. He grips the glass and it shatters. The film established early that his hands stick when he's terrified, and the shattering tells you exactly how hard he's holding on. He's still afraid. He goes anyway. His animation shifts from 2s to 1s, 12 frames per second to 24. The wrongness that's lived in his movement since his first scene disappears at the exact frame.
So what he is on the second Spider-Man, so he gotta be like a 38 on some real stuff. I feel like 38.
The animation department built a physical marker into the world that fires at the same moment the screenplay's emotional payoff does. What's Up Danger scores the sequence. Hip-hop, Brooklyn, his sound. Think about what that choice is saying. Every other Spider-Man film scores its big moments. This belongs to the history of cinema. Spider-Verse scores Miles' defining moment with a hip-hop track built on a bass drop and a verse about looking danger in the eye. The music is saying, his heroism belongs to his world. Brooklyn, the culture he came from. The sound his uncle probably had playing in the background of every conversation they ever had. The chorus explodes at the exact moment the first web fires and Miles catches himself and swings upward. That's the moment everything clicks. The song, the animation, the story, all hitting at once. Every other legacy handover is staged as receiving something. Miles builds his own fire and jumps toward it. And what he jumps toward is the moment the whole film was engineered to reach. Not just emotionally, mechanically. The climax is where every decision Spider-Verse made, in the writing room, the animation pipeline, the color suite, gets cashed in at once. Remember that blank figure on the subway wall? Silhouette with no face, surrounded by color. A kid who didn't know what shape he was yet. Miles defeats Kingpin with camouflage and a Venom Strike. Abilities Peter Parker never had. Powers that came from Miles' own biology and no one else's. The final victory belongs to the person Miles is. His biology, his psychology, the tools the screenplay made sure only he possessed. The win is completely his own. Built from everything that makes him different from every Spider-Man before him. And the film designed that outcome from the beginning. Think about what that required. The screenwriters had to resist the easy version, the version where Miles draws on everything Peter taught him in the climax, where the student becomes the master, where the torch is passed in the most literal way. That version is more comfortable. It's more expected. Spider-Verse chose a harder thing, a victory that Peter couldn't have won by a person Peter couldn't have been. Pull back from the film for a second. After watching all these movies, I don't think this is really a character problem anymore. I think it's a filmmaking problem. Whether every person working on the film understood what they were trying to do and pulled in the same direction. The films that
That's the writing problem. I don't even think that's filmmaking problem. That is a writing problem. I'm gonna just keep it real. I'm gonna just keep it on the nice, good G stuff. That is the writing problem.
failed each had one room making the case. The screenplay argued for the new character, or the direction did, or the marketing did. The other departments hadn't gotten the memo. Audiences felt the absence of that coordination.
But this E.T. cousin? Man, when they got E.T. cousin in this mug, bro. That boy, orange?
Even when they couldn't explain it. One voice saying, accept this character, while everything around it stayed silent. When audiences rejected those characters, They said the character didn't work. The actual gap was between the one department making the argument and every other department that wasn't. Over 90 minutes, every department in that production filled in that outline, in frame rate and color and sound and plot and grief and a father's voice through a door. And then, at the top of a skyscraper, all of those decisions converged on a single frame. He jumped. And every system in the film had already told you he was going to be okay. Spider-Verse didn't give Miles a better writer. It gave him a production where every room made the same bet on the same kid. The audience just felt the conclusion. And somewhere in Hollywood, in a writing room or a color review or an animation meeting,
just in general, I'm saying it's two different stories when it comes to all of this. It's two different stories in every title, and they need to get better with the writing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow our social media, pop on the screen. We is on the road to 700.